Welcome to Lee County Library's STEAM Club. Today, we are doing an activity with graham crackers. We are going to mimic plate tectonics. Let's take a moment and just feel your feet on the ground. Feel your body. Does it feel like you're moving? Does it feel like you're surfing? Well, in a way, we are. We are standing on the Earth's crust, and the Earth's crust is floating on top of the mantle, and it's constantly moving. Earth's crust, the lithosphere, is divided into separate pieces, and they all fit together like a puzzle. And these puzzle pieces are constantly moving and shifting, and that moving and shifting is what gives us our mountains and earthquakes and volcanoes. So pretty cool stuff. So let's get started. We'll need some graham crackers, and these are going to be our continental crusts. More on that in a bit. We'll need some fruit roll-ups. This is going to be our oceanic crust. We'll need some type of fluffy material. I've got whipped topping here. You could use icing, that would work too. This is going to be our mantle, molten rock right here. And I'm gonna make mine red with some red food coloring. You'll also need just a little bit of water. So I've got a little bowl of water here, and probably a plate, some napkins. And if you're gonna eat this after we play around with it, make sure you wash your hands first. Let's start with our mantle. So go on and slap your whipped topping onto your plate. You don't need too much, probably about a ½ inch layer to an inch layer. Spread it all onto your plate. I'm gonna put some red food coloring onto mine. So this is mimicking the asthenosphere, that layer beneath the Earth's crust, the lithosphere. So this asthenosphere is highly viscous. It's slushy, molten rock. It's really hot, magma. And we're mimicking that. I need a little bit more red food coloring. And on top of this, we are going to use our crust, so our graham crackers and our fruit roll-ups. And we are going to mimic where these different plates of the Earth come together, these plate boundaries, to create mountains and earthquakes and volcanoes. We're going to mimic that and see how exactly that happens. So spread out your mantle. Spread out your whipped topping. Get it all on the base there. All right, I think we're ready for some plates. The first plate boundary we're going to talk about is going to be a transformed boundary. So you'll need 2 graham crackers. These are our continental crusts, right? So they're kind of lighter in color. They're formed of rock, similar to the composition of granite, what you would find in the Sierra Nevada. And our 2 continental crusts, we're going to place them side by side so they're touching. Like so. So here's our plate boundary. That's the plate boundary where 2 different plates meet and they come together. Here's our transform boundary. So this is where we have a continental plate and another continental plate, and one continental plate is moving one way and the other is moving the other way. So I'm just going to pull this one back and move this one forward. Imagine if you were standing right on the edge of this boundary while it was moving. What would it feel like? You probably jostled around like this, right? So this type of boundary causes earthquakes. The San Andreas Fault in California, where they have a lot of earthquakes. This is what's causing those earthquakes. Let's move on to our next plate boundary. For this one, you'll need 2 pieces of graham cracker, and I've just taken my longer piece and snapped it in 2. And you'll need to wet each side of the graham cracker. So just dunk it in the water really fast, because if you leave it in there very long, it's just going to disintegrate and it's very messy. We just need it a little bit wet. And then put the 2 wet sides together on top of your mantle, on top of your whipped topping. I dunked mine twice. All right. So I've just laid my graham crackers on top of my mantle, on top of my asthenosphere, my magma. And I've got one plate here, one plate here. Here's the plate boundary in between those two plates. And these two plates are going to come together. This is going to be a convergent boundary. So let's push our two graham crackers together and see what happens. What happened? Do you see that? They crumbled up together. Do you know what we just did? We made mountains. Look at that. When these two plates come together, they crash into each other. The plates are forced upward, creating a mountain range. This is how the Himalayas were formed, at a convergent boundary. So this convergent boundary was two continental crusts coming together. Let's do one where we have a continental crust with an oceanic crust. So we'll need our fruit roll-up for this next one. All right, convergent boundary type 2. We've got our continental crust and our oceanic crust. So our continental crust is what we're on right now. We're on a continent, we're on a ground here in the United States. And our oceanic crust is what's beneath the oceans. So here, do you know why I have two different materials? Can you make a guess? The two types of crust are different. So a continental crust, like we said before, has a similar composition to granite, which is a lighter colored rock, like what you would find in the Sierra Nevada. Oceanic crust is mostly made out of rocks with a composition of basalt, a darker colored rock, like rocks that you would find in Hawaii. So it's denser, it's darker, it's heavier, and we've got our continental crust. Let's make a boundary with them on top of our mantle, and we're just going to place them side by side. So we've got our continental crust and our oceanic crust. Try not to overlap them, but do get them so that they are on equal flooring there. I've got a little bit of my mantle coming up in the middle. All right, here we have it. We've got our continental crust here, oceanic crust here. Here's our plate boundary where our two plates are coming together. And I said we're going to do a second type of convergent boundary. And convergent means that they are pressing into each other. So we're going to press our fruit roll-up into our graham cracker and see what happens when a continental crust collides with an oceanic crust. Let's do it. What happened with yours? You can kind of see it on mine here, just on the edge here. You see how the fruit roll-up is going beneath the graham cracker? That oceanic crust is submerging into the mantle, and our continental crust is coming out on top. Do you see that? So what's really cool, what happens here is that this oceanic crust, as it submerges, it goes into the mantle, and like we said before, the mantle is really, really hot. It's highly viscous, it's moving like slushy molten rock. It's so hot in there, the pressure is so high that when this oceanic crust goes into there, it's recycled. The oceanic plate, this oceanic crust, will always subduct under the continental crust because it's denser, so it's going to be pushed underneath back into the mantle. And when that happens, the heat and the pressure, they can build up, and bits of the mantle of that magma, that molten rock, come up and create a volcano. We've talked about volcanoes where we've got an oceanic plate subducting underneath a continental plate. We've talked about earthquakes, where we have two continental plates going past each other, one moving, say, forward, one moving back, moving opposite ways there. And when pressure builds up, where they get caught on one another, and then when it releases, that's what causes an earthquake. And then we have two continental plates crashing into each other, forming mountains, like the Himalayas. Lots of different boundaries, lots of different plates, all doing different things when they come together at their boundaries. All of this movement is what we call plate tectonics. Hope you all had a little bit of fun and learned a little something about this wonderful earth that we live on. Check out the library website, library.leecountync.gov, for all of our latest programming. We hope to see you here at the library. Bye!